Hello Holotable, welcome to another video here on YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about the new mercenary tag. This is kind of a part 2, but also more of a reflection on the recent post from Meathead on CG's forums page on EA. I have it pulled up here. I did make a video a couple weeks ago when they first announced the mercenary title about characters that I think could use this tag to help lift them up from relative obscurity. Some characters you still see uses, but I thought that this mercenary tag would have a lot of rollover or a lot of crossover with bounty hunter characters and could elevate some characters you just don't see on EA teams. I'm going to go into some of those examples. I'm going to look at the list that they created for us that they have confirmed will be on old characters. So I did a pretty good job listing almost every character. Some are more of a whole faction rather than a character. There were a few surprises too. So I will go into that as well. In the old video, which you can find on my YouTube page, I may link down below. You can also see some factions that I could see being added to the game down the road. And that could also have this tag. But let's go ahead and jump into the article itself here a little bit. I'll scroll down here. The mercenary tag is going to be a unique tag, or at least to create the the mercenary buffs. You need Baylan School as your leader. He will then give these buffs to the older characters. There's no other way to generate the effects of the mercenary tag besides this. There are two characters that are introduced into the game who can generate their own benefits, which they call, I believe, the Spoils of War. I believe that's how it works. Spoils of SOF, Spoils of War. Nope. Soldiers of Fortune, sorry. Soldiers of Fortune. So both Merrick and Shen will be able to generate their own stacks, but Baylan will be the only character to be able to give stacks to older characters from the game who have the mercenary tag. So we're not really sure exactly what the Soldiers of Fortune effect will be. I don't believe it goes down into major detail about the buffs itself, but it will give different perks, and Baylan, Shen, and Merrick all generate different styles, so there's a chance that different characters will have a different percentage of stacks depending on what synergies you create with the faction, which is kind of something I wanted from this tagline itself of the mercenary tag. If you go to my old video, I talked about breaking up the Jabba team a little bit, giving some of his units a little bit of different variety, like, you know, Bane, Boba Fett, Jango, Chrysanthemum, all those characters. I did a little brief dive into that when I talked about Jabba in my previous mercenary video. But we will scroll down here and see some of the characters they have listed here. Like, they have Baylan Skull, of course, that's obvious. Boba Fett, Sign of Jango. I didn't consider him as a character in my first video, but that one makes sense. I didn't think that the old school Boba made sense because he was basically pure bounty hunter at that time. I mean, you got your Cad Bane, Canderous, Cara Dune, all characters I included in my video and thought could have this tag. You got Fennec Shand, you got Chrysanthemum. I did talk about Qi'ra. I thought you could create a character that would then boost this. I didn't think that Baylan would be a direct boost to the Qi'ra squad with Qi'ra, young Hondo, young Lando, young Han. But I did think that she could have this tagline and have, like, you know, a Dryden Voss or a Beckett added on. That would then increase her team's viability. Because right now, the Qi'ra team's not very strong. Definitely gets overpowered by teams that shouldn't beat her and all those fun things. I did think that an interesting thing on this list, I will highlight them here, that I thought were interesting that they added on with this mercenary tag that I was not expecting, was your Old Republic characters. Now, I did think that Canderous Ordo could have this tag because he was a lot more than just Old Republic and Mandalorian. He did odd jobs all around the place. But you have Mission Val and Zalbar on this list. I thought that was kind of interesting because they really don't see much play together, even though they do have some synergy together. So maybe with this mercenary tagline, they could have a stronger place in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. And there's other Old Republic characters they could bring in too. Like I mentioned in my old video, Calo Nord, once again, Canderous. But there's so many characters from those games, from the Knights of the Old Republic, that could have this mercenary tagline. That's most of your roster in those games are mercenaries. Yes, they help the Jedi or the Sith, but they're kind of doing their own thing, helping random people out. But also on CG's list, you have, like, Sana Staros. I really don't know much about her, so I didn't include her in my list. You also have Dr. Aphra, which is interesting. That's another unit you don't see much play in anymore. You have Embo, that's also breaking up that Jabba the Hutt list, which we talked about already. And you have Jedi Knight Cal Kestis. Now, I've not played the Jedi Survivor games, but I am familiar with his role in the games. I guess in the first game, he's not really a mercenary, but come the second one, Jedi... what's it called? The newest one they created with Cal. He's more of a mercenary in that game. He's not really doing Jedi things anymore, or kind of scoundrel things. He's more of a merc, so that makes sense if you follow any of the storyline. Won't spoil the game because it's still a fairly new game. But Cal Katarn, I was going to include him in my last video, but I just didn't think that... I thought he had too many crossover already in teams like Rebels and Online Force users, I think, that I didn't think he needed the Merc tag as well. So I already thought he had some viability. Giving him the Merc tag would bring him into some relevance even higher. L337, she goes with the Prepared Squad. They kind of all gets lumped into Qi'ra and Dash Rendar. That's kind of grouped all into one thing, so that makes sense. Seeing Bam on this list, not sure how I feel about Bam. Depends on how strong the buffs are that Baylan can give out to him. Because Bam's already got some uses. I mean, he's not... Maybe CG is thinking that he had a light side bundle, he's a requirement for certain things. Maybe they just want to make him more useful because he's not really that strong of a character, even though he is a journey character. And he has a very interesting kit. I just don't think he's as strong as they want him to be. So maybe they're hoping that this mercenary tagline will, one, thematically make sense, but also mechanically make him a more useful character to use in other squads. But really, it's only with Baylan, so it still limits the total squads you can use. These are a lot of characters with a Merc tagline, which makes Baylan accessible to basically every player in the game. But you can't use all the units unless they have like unique synergies per character, which I think is only related based off Baylan, Shin, and Merrick, who will get different buffs. So like you get buff 1, buff 2, buff 3. So there's only 3 possible buffs that they can give out here. Let's see here. Baylan will give all Mercs with Soldier of Fortune effects. A stacking buff will call it buff 1, so he gives 1 unique. I believe Shin and Merrick can only synergize with their own buff with themselves and with Baylan. I don't think they spread it to other Mercs. Let's see here. Or maybe not. Maybe they can also spread it. Maybe they can only spread their own buffs. So Baylan can only spread buff 1. Shin spreads buff 2. Merrick spreads buff 3. So you'll have different levels of variancy, which won't be identical. Let's see here. Older characters and having them reap benefits from those stacks will make it... Yeah, so you can have a different synergy depending on if you use Baylan, Shin, Merrick, and maybe different characters can gain different amounts of the buffs. Yeah, okay, so... No, sorry, up here. Example. Up here. So that's what I thought was going on. Yeah, so Baylan can spread stacks of his unique Soldiers of Fortune buff to all mercenaries. But Shin and Merrick, if you read right here, can only add it to themselves, and they can't spread to anybody else. So they have a unique buff themselves, but no one else gets their buffs. So you could have like Baylan and 4 other mercenaries not have Shin or Merrick and still gain benefit from Baylan's mercenary spread. It might not be part of his leadership. I'm not sure if that works. It might be a unique he has. We don't have a kit breakdown for him yet. But it will be interesting to see how useful all these characters are. There will definitely be some metas, or maybe... I mean, it could be a potency buff. It could be an offense buff. Who knows what the buffs are? So maybe some of these characters won't even be useful to have on the team because they generate no stacks or no benefits from Baylan. But I did want to point out some characters on this list as well that I think you will never see used with Baylan unless in a weird assault battle circumstance or your roster is very limited. For example, they have Han Solo here. I mean, you want to pair Han Solo away from Chewbacca? I mean, maybe there's a 3-man squad of like Baylan, Han, and Chewie you could use. That could be useful if you don't have CLS. But that basically makes CLS useless. Or not useless, but less useful. It could be a meta where this is so strong that you have to create a new CLS team that's not as potent. I have seen a trend with CG lately where maybe they want to break apart CLS a little bit. He's been a stable team for so long. Then maybe they want to make a character that wants to break apart his team and shift them elsewhere to make them more useful and make CLS not as strong. So they make CLS more of a unique counter rather than a don't know what to use, throw CLS and get the win. Maybe that's an option. We'll have to see how Baylan synergizes with all these characters, see what the best routes are. Something that I've hyped on, or not hyped on, but harped on a few times, is the Jabba Jabba the Hutt disbandment of his roster. He has a pretty stable roster of like Leia, Chrysanthemum, sometimes Imba. You can kind of mix up the other three a little bit, or the other two. So you got your Jabba, your Leia, and then your Chrysanthemum to tank. If you can mess that roster up a little bit, get a little more variety, because there are a lot of bounty hunters, which you can see here are getting the Merc tag. Maybe that can shift the roster. Maybe you want Chrysanthemum with Baylan instead. So instead of having him be your tank, find another bounty hunter mix for Jabba, so he's not as tanky of a frontline. I think that's healthy for the game to not have a set team that's always the best. Never mix it up. But I think variety is healthy for the game. I said in my past video that having rosters where you have like, you can pair up 3 Sith with 2 Rebels or 2 Jedi. Which I don't know of any teams right now you can do that. But those ideas are the most fun I have in this game, is able to pair up your random factions together and not have to be all Sith get this bonus, but maybe attackers. So then you got 5 attackers from different factions, and you never see them in a movie together, but in this game you have a chance to have them work together. And that's a fun idea for the game. I think it's healthy. Other characters, let's see if there's anybody else. I think what you'll never see on Baylan unless it's just crazy OP. Right now, let's say Chrysanthemum, he's pretty much stuck to Jabba. But if you don't have Jabba and you have Chrysanthemum, which is probably a small number of the player base, you could throw him on with Baylan. But he's probably going to be stuck with Jabba in GAC and things. Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, once again, unless this mercenary tagline is busted, I don't see him being taken apart from other Jedis. He's just a great unit to have in like a JML team, or really any Jedi team. I don't have him yet, so I've not played around with him yet. But I do know a lot of people tout that Jedi Knight Cal is a great unit for any Jedi teams. So your Mission Val, she has no place right now really, so maybe she could be thrown on a Baylan team, and maybe depending on his buffs will make her not explode in one hit. Zalbar you can be seen thrown around with other teams, but he can be pulled off most teams and placed elsewhere, so he's a very flexible character as is. I'd say very loosely he's not like the most flexible character. We can throw him on Old Republic, throw him on Wookiees, he can be used as a damage dealer elsewhere. So he has his uses. Seeing more use for like Banner Chewbacca, it's already a pretty good unit, depending on what team you put him on. Like Veteran Han, he has almost no place. But giving them more uses could be fun to have. Seeing like a Baylan, Shin, Veteran Han, Banner Chewbacca, and like, I don't know. I guess Merrick too, that'd be an interesting 5-man team. Just to give them a use on another team. We'll have to see once again how the Mercenary Soldiers of Fortune buff works. I think I got Sam Wessler, which I did talk about in my last video. It makes sense, she's on this list, she's done a lot of things in the Star Wars universe over time. But she's not really on any set team, so that's okay. Who else here could be only gets one place? Basically, I see the Mercenary tagline breaking up your Bounty Hunter cartel a little bit. And also looks like it's trying to break up CLS a smidge, but unless the Bounty Hunters are so good, I don't see Han leaving CLS. He's not really used on much other teams unless you're trying to cheese Conquest, or in a very niche scenario where you don't have the full CLS roster and you're throwing him on a random Rebel team or Scoundrels or something like that. You just want him to get a first hit to stun somebody. There are some cheeses out there. Giving Hondo a place, if you have him, he can be useful, but most players don't have him, so maybe making him a mercenary will elevate him to more gameplay, which I think is healthy. Anything that doesn't have much use, which is majority of this roster, there are uses for all these characters, but like, you rarely see Qi'ra. L337, it's basically only used to auto tank early on. Giving her another use is also great. Hondo you don't see much anymore. Dr. Aphra, unless you have her, you don't see her, so I'll encourage players to grab her. I think all this is healthy for the game. But guys, this is a rather shorter video. I just want to kind of look at the new characters and kind of highlight that seems to be a good change so far, a new good addition to the game. Hopefully these buffs will actually shake up some of the meta, will shake up the Jabba team. I'd be okay with CLS being shaken up too. It's kind of boring using the same team every single time you use a character, or the same leadership. I always like variety. Having Commander Luke Skywalker always have Han, Chewie, 3PO, and C-3PO can get boring over time. But I think that will do it for this video, guys. So, one last little summary, because I just want to talk about this before we end, is the percentage of these guys I got right. That's about 80% plus of characters who are going to get this tag. I did create many other factions, so if you want to see my theory crafting, you can go to my old video. I won't reiterate those points again in this video, but I do think this is going to be a great change. I'm looking forward to getting Baylan myself, so hopefully I'll have some fun content around him and throwing in other units. But guys, if you like this stuff, always leave a like below. Comment down below what units you think need this tag that aren't listed here in the CG's post. If you think there's any other cool factions that could be made with this mercenary tagline, drop that down below. I'd love to see what you think. If you want to check out my past video, you can find that in my older videos. I'll link it down below in the description. But guys, until next time, check out for a fun video next week. May the force be with you.